who these schools serve. These schools serve students. If students say no, you need to rethink why it is that you think putting guns in schools is okay when a collective body of students who the schools are created for is saying no.
A heated debate raged at Tuesday night's Baltimore School Board meeting, mirroring a national controversy, whether to arm police in schools.
It's like we're a bunch of animals that just can't wait to get a hold of kids, and that couldn't be further from the truth. You know, our men and women are proud, professional people. It's a proud organization.
There is no meaningful data that supports the claim that having SROs increases school safety or lowers violent crime, but there is substantial data that even one instance of police contact increases the likelihood that a young person will be further involved in the juvenile system or fall behind or drop out.
The board was set to vote on a measure authorizing cops to carry guns during school time when a dozen youth with the Baltimore Algebra Project took over the meeting to demand youth voices be heard.
Well, we understand, but we're not going to stop until we are allowed to talk to all the right demands. We have 5 demands, and then once we're done, you all can go.
We don't talk about like not having any kind of accountability or any kind of safety for students. We just talk about a different form of safety that doesn't include police officers with guns. We think that restorative practice is a great way for us to do this.
Schools Board Chair Cheryl Cassini suspended the meeting in response.
This meeting is officially recessed.
Shit.
A proposal by Maryland State Delegate Cheryl Glenn would allow officers to carry guns during school hours. When the board reconvened, it voted 10-0 to oppose the measure. Delegate Glenn confirmed with the Real News she'd be withdrawing the measure. Consensus was needed between the mayor and the school board, she said.
Well, here you go, a teacher getting punched in the face by one of her students.
Citing recent incidents of violence inside of schools, several community members and police officers spoke in favor of the measure.
I want to ask for your support in favor for arming the school police officers on a full-time basis. The men and women of this department needs to have the ability and able to do their jobs if or when the time presents itself.
None of you have ever held a dead child, and I hope you never have to. If that's the case, all this banter about what does and what could be and what likely could be doesn't even make a difference. You did nothing to stop what could have happened.
We didn't tolerate the foolishness that's happening now in our city with regard to our students, beating up teachers, etc. I don't want to get off track, but what I'm suggesting is that we're not tough enough.
But opponents noted that data shows armed police don't make schools safer.
According to a Washington Post investigation from March, in almost every single one of the school shootings since 1999 where there was an armed school police officer, the officer was not able to intervene before the shooting was over, either because there were too many students nearby or because they couldn't get there in time.
And argued arming officers would do more harm than good.
Of the students arrested in Baltimore by Baltimore City School Police in 2015-16, 99% were black versus only 80% district-wide. 92% experienced poverty as opposed to 83% district-wide. And 40% had disabilities versus only 15% district-wide.
Both the Baltimore City Police Department and school police are currently under federal consent decree, after the Department of Justice uncovered a widespread pattern of racist policing in the city. Some also argued the school district has more pressing needs.
It is simply the case that there is a limited amount of political capital, and expending it with the city delegation to arm officers over funds that support heat and light for our students is immoral.
Earlier in the day, the ACLU of Maryland and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund sent a letter to Governor Hogan to demand Baltimore schools receive adequate funding. We reached out to the governor's office for a response, and they noted the governor's budget included an additional $11 million over what current funding formulas mandate due to the city's declining enrollment.
However, our budget ignores those legislative recommendations and restores all of this important funding.
Well, of course, what we're talking about is what is constitutionally adequate. It's very important to understand that because we know that our children need so much to succeed as all children do. The state's own figures show that there is an adequacy gap of at least $258 million, and the Kirwan Commission's study shows approximately upwards of more than $350 million in that adequacy gap.
Possible precursor to a new lawsuit over the state's failure to adequately fund its schools.
Well, that will depend on what we hear with and from the governor from the state of Maryland. What is most important, and I'm glad you pointed out the Bradford lawsuit, because that was filed in 1996. That was 20 years ago. Our children in Baltimore City can't wait any longer. Can't wait for adequate funding, constitutionally adequate funding for schools, for heat, for clean water.
5 schools were closed in Baltimore Tuesday due to frigid temperatures or flooding. Last winter, over 60 schools were closed due to freezing classrooms, with many pointing to billions in backlog facilities repairs. Still, despite all the school system's considerable challenges, the focus was on guns, a fact many said would do little to help the city's education system achieve its primary goal, helping students learn.
We were helping them and considering them as whole people, not just one number in a school, but as a whole person who maybe doesn't have anything to eat when they go home, or who maybe doesn't have a parent when they go home. If we were considering those kinds of mental, psychological issues, then when they get into the schools, there would be no reason why a cop would ever need a gun inside of a school.
For The Real News, this is Jessel Noor in Baltimore.